Hello and welcome to the Work of Thy Hands podcast, where we interview Christian creatives conversing on the ways they have seen their creative projects as co-creative efforts with Christ. I'm your host, Allison Ramirez, and today I'm thrilled to be welcoming our next guest to the podcast, Tiffany Germain. Being a homeschooling mother of 7, Tiffany is basically a manager of chaos. She teaches, cooks, cleans, and everything in between by day, and reads and writes by night. Besides her 7 blessings, she has 3 dogs, a snake, a cat, chickens, ducks, and goats. Don't forget her supportive husband who allows the chaos. Together they created the Catholic Sword Apologetics app. Her current project, Converging Darkness, is a YA fantasy about the commander's rule-breaking daughter who fails an important test that would have enabled her to break the dark curse. So instead, she does the unthinkable, befriends a dark wolf, which is both dangerous and forbidden. Although this manuscript has not set a release date, it has already won the Falling Dusk Publishing Writing Contest. Welcome, Tiffany. It's great to have you on the podcast. Yeah, it sounds like you've got a very lively and energetic home. I loved seeing all the pets that you had. I also love animals too. I have a guinea pig, a hamster, a dog, and a chinchilla right now. Tell me about your book. I'd love to hear about Converging Darkness because I know we were both winners in that Falling Dusk publishing contest, which was a lot of fun. How did you start writing it? How did you get into writing, and anything else you want to share about that?
Darkness started with a short story. I tried to do a short story competition, and I came up with a shorter version of it that really had like some Christian underlying elements in it that were subtle, some themes to it, and it made me think that this could be really great. Uh, so I wrote it out and I fell in love with it. Um, and, and that's where I'm at. I'm in the last editing stages of the first book, Converging Darkness, and then I have almost the full rough draft of the second and final book planned in the series. I was never like fully into writing though. Writing was never my thing. So I started with finally liking to read when I was younger, and then growing to love the writing in that process.
Yeah, so that's interesting that the novel started as a short story then. Did you write the short story like just for fun, or were you writing it to enter it somewhere, or what got you wanting to write that initial piece?
It was for a contest.
And then you entered the contest, and then so how long was that original short story that you started with?
I want to say it was like 2,000 words.
Okay. And then, like, what was your process like in getting it actually to like a full length novel? Like, did you just start like thinking of how you could expand the characters or their world?
Yeah, that's basically it. I love the book Save the Cat. I think that's the right title, right?
I read, yeah, Save the Cat. Yeah, like story planning kind of
Yeah,
guide.
yeah. Yeah, so I used that to kind of plot out the whole story and develop my characters, and it really turned into like I probably could make it into like a trilogy, but I ended up just squeezing it down into duology.
Okay. And then, so how long did that process take you with the short story? And then now you said you've written the first book, it hasn't been published yet, and you drafted the second final book. How long has that taken you?
Well, I've been writing for a long time, but this particular project, I want to say I started 3 years ago, and it's one of those things where I just can't write when I'm pregnant. I
Mm-hmm.
half the pregnancy I'm sick, the other
Okay.
half my brain is too muddled where
Uh-huh.
there's no way. So it's one of those things I stop and start, and yeah.
And come back to it. Yeah. And then the genre. I'd love to hear more about the actual story because you said it's YA fantasy, and this sounds like there's a dark wolf you mentioned in the series. So how did you come up with this idea for this?
It was really the short story prompt. It had to be something about werewolves.
Okay.
And so mine is werewolfy in a way,
Mm-hmm.
but has some themes that, especially towards the end, the second book, that really start popping out as far as Christianity go.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's the short story prompt was really what clicked that idea into place.
Okay. And so then what was the short story about? Because I'm just really curious because I've never written a short story, but I actually want to get into short stories this year. How did you expand it? What did it start with versus what it became from the short story to the novel?
If I say what it was that I wrote for the short story, I'd probably give away most of the book. Yeah, basically, what the short story is I wrote is a lot of the actual ending of the second book.
Okay.
So yeah, I basically just really expanded that into a first and a second book.
Mm-hmm.
Short stories, though, they're definitely more. I never really read short stories, so I'm sure it'd help if I read a lot more short stories, but I
Mm-hmm.
haven't been very successful.
Yeah, I always struggle with making it cohesive from start to finish because I find that when I work on short stories, the reader is wanting to know where is this character going? How are they progressing? And I just keep finding myself wanting to add more and more and more. And then it becomes a
Oh,
novella or a novel instead of just staying as a
yeah.
short story. So I'm like trying to be contained, in the 3,000 or 4,000 words. Then I guess going more back to the origins then of your writing, because you mentioned that you were never really a writer, but then you entered this short story contest. Were you looking to get into writing, or did someone recommend the contest to you, or how did you start getting into writing?
I was dreaming since I was in middle school to become a writer. I started actually writing full books in like college. Converging Darkness is not the first book I wrote. As many have said, I know that lots of debut novels, they'll be their first book they write, but most people, you got to throw away your first and sometimes your second,
Mm-hmm.
uh, sometimes more before you get to that one that you can publish.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I threw away my first. I redid the first and threw away that one too. And then I wrote a second, which I do actually really love and hope I can come back to. But then this one came up and I decided this is the one I'm
Mm-hmm.
going I'm going to finish finally.
Yeah. So then it sounds like, because you mentioned you started writing based on that prompt from the short story contest. So is that when you first got the idea for the book, or did you kind of have the idea before you entered the contest?
That was more recently. What I think it was about 5 years ago that I started
Mhm.
trying to play around with short stories in the
Okay.
contests. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been writing on and off, like I said, whenever I'm pregnant, I can't. And I have 7 kids.
Yeah. So it's definitely an ebbing and flowing journey for you for the writing.
Yeah, yeah. Gotta persist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's been a journey and I really hopeful that I can publish my first debut novel by the end of this year. Is my goal
Mm-hmm.
at least.
When you submitted it to Falling Dusk publishing contest, you had written the whole book, I'm assuming, but are you just working more on revisions now, or have you picked a release date yet, or where are you in that publishing process?
When I submitted it in Augustish, I had done my developmental editing. I did have an editor. She's been great. And then after I submitted it, I've been working on line editing since.
Okay. Yes. Yep. I can relate to that. I know. When I was working on my first book, I got someone to proofread it. But yeah, I kind of wish I could go back and walk with somebody through that whole process. Since publishing my first book, I've gotten more involved in editing. So I like to help edit other people edit their books. Each of the stages is so important and definitely brings new ideas to the story and helps refine it, whether it's big picture or the copy line editing. And I know what you mean about having to throw away some stories because I worked on my first story in middle school and it was 50,000 words. And yeah, looking back over it to see how far I've come as a writer, it's really those stories, even if they don't see the light of day, they have that foundation that's needed to
Yes.
get your current book to where you want it to be and get it published. So that's great. So tell me then, you're a stay-at-home mom with your 7 kids. So in writing, you said you've been writing since you were in middle school. Do you have other professional work that's helped you in your writing, or is it just more you're pulling kind of from your schooling days of English and writing?
I didn't even go to college for English or writing. I love science. So
Okay.
that's why I went to school for. But as
Mhm.
far as writing goes, have really delved into a lot of the nonfiction books that
Okay.
have taught me the craft. I have done lots of critique partners and beta readers, and all the advice they give you also really helps shape what you write.
Mm-hmm.
I've listened to podcasts too, and I've taken some writing classes online, and got some certificates, but just like my minor ones, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really all I've actually done professionally. Everything else has just been homeschooling a bunch of children.
Yes. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because so many people that I've had recently that I've interviewed on the podcast, their background is not in writing at all. Like the gentleman I just spoke with last week, he has a mathematician background. And it's
Oh
similar
wow.
where he would write in pockets of time. He just published his first novel last year, and he said it was 15 years in the making from when he started. And it
Oh
sounded like
wow.
he was also raising a family and he was working full time, but he'd write on his lunch breaks. And he said he just did that faithfully for 15 years, until he's like, I've got a lot of obligations, but I'm also really passionate about writing. So I want to keep going and pursuing my dream. It worked out for him in the end. Yeah, I think that, for myself, I will say I majored in English and I found that to be helpful, but I think that nowadays there's so much you can learn like you said doing courses or being parts of online writing communities or even on YouTube. I've learned a lot about
Oh,
writing and
that's
publishing that way. Is there any like groups that you're in right now that you'd recommend that you found helpful for writers?
I mean, I used to be on some great like beta reader groups on Facebook. Those haven't been very active though as of recently. And there's some
Mhm.
other ones on Facebook. Of course, X has their writing community. I don't really find them very helpful. There's Catholic Guild,
Mhm.
and they do have like you can do like critique parting, and they can be great.
Yeah.
And you got to help you critique their work and they'll critique your work type of thing, a swap, which is awesome because hiring people for critiquing and beta reading is quite can be quite pricey when you add up all the other things to do with writing.
True.
But yeah, like you said too, there's a lots of YouTube videos that are just excellent resources along with
Mhm.
lots of books.
Yes, definitely. When I first started, it's been about 5 years since I got serious into writing and publishing. And there was a couple YouTube channels that I followed, and the ladies that were doing the videos were just so knowledgeable and they were just sharing all about their writing process and their publishing process. And that's how I first learned before I started finding out about, yeah, the Catholic Writing Guild and a couple other communities I'm a part of, like Legend Fiction. Yeah, and then that short story contest sounds like it really sparked this idea that's become your book. I'm curious, what's the name of that? Was that just a one-time contest? Because I have a hard time finding like places that take short stories.
Yeah, that was I believe that was from uh, Realm Makers. They do have a group too on Facebook. A lot of them are, I don't know if you've heard of Enclave Publishing. Like they're
No.
Christian sci-fi fantasy
Mm-hmm.
publishing company, and they're great. But yeah, I think someone posted that they were looking to do a collection of short stories. Yeah, so that's why I saw that and I pursued it. But
Mm-hmm.
there's been other ones like you mentioned, was it Legends Havens? Is that
Oh, yep, Legend Haven. Yeah, Legend Fiction.
they did, they used to I joined them right when they started the group, and they used to have short story competitions, and I did one in that. I almost won, and that one was very fun.
Yeah, I know. I think they even actually the Guild and Legend Haven both put out anthologies recently. So I think they pick like themes and then people submit short stories and then they can be included in the anthology that gets published by the group. And I thought that's kind of a nice idea to get like a hodgepodge of different writers to showcase their work all in one full-length book with a bunch of short stories. That is something I've thought of too. I've thought, well, maybe I could make a full length novel that's filled with 4 or 5 short stories around a certain theme. And then also with your series, have you had a lot of people that have given you positive feedback on the book so far? You mentioned you're in critique groups. Or do you feel like the book's close to being ready to go? You said you're on copy line editing right now, but do you have an idea on when you might want to publish it this year?
It's one of those things where I'm like having a hard time, like, just saying this is done. Yeah, so that's just a hard jump in itself.
Hmm.
But I've had a few beta readers, and I was tickled pink by one of them saying, "Wow, this looks like professional work right here. Can you really like help me teach me how to write?" I was like, "Oh my goodness, that's so sweet of you." And that was before any developmental editing or any of that.
Hmm.
So yeah, I was very thankful for the comments I got. So it's really further pushed me to know that this might be I'm going to do it, and I will.
Hmm.
For this one, definitely I'm
Yes.
going to publish. And I'm hoping, like, my goal is like November-ish. I don't know. I still gotta look into it because I was going to go through a publisher, and I'm still open for that. I do have one
Hmm.
query letter still out, but regardless if that doesn't happen, I will then self-publish.
That was just my next question I was gonna ask. Yeah, if you were gonna indie indie publish or traditionally publish. Yeah, I know. At first I wanted to go the traditional publishing route with my first book. I've self-published I think 5 books now. It's like hard to keep track. But yeah, and I wanted to have that traditional publishing route, but it didn't work out for the first book, but even though I've self-published a bunch of books in the back of my head, I'm like, well, maybe I'll still try to, go that route with one of them in the future. I know for myself, I've loved self publishing, but then I've also heard of other authors have really enjoyed traditional publishing. So, whichever one works out for your book, I'm sure it will be good.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm curious too, you mentioned there's some Christian themes in the book. Tell me how you discerned on what themes you wanted to include and how does faith show up in your novel so far?
Well, I went into this particular book. My last book, I definitely had like very Christian tone throughout. They
Mhm.
definitely showed their faith and all that. This book, I was hoping to go through and not have an overarching theme for the whole series. But I mean, when your faith is so ingrained in you, you still can't help but put some stuff. So she
Mhm.
does have like she wears a cross necklace that her mother, who had passed away, had given her. And every once in a while, although she's not like Christian per se, but that at the beginning, by the end, she will see that light.
Mhm.
And there's also like that good and evil battle. And I think in modern culture right now, especially, we've kind of grayed those lines a lot. We're starting to put evil characters, and even like what is it, Cruella Deville, Wicked, like I don't even watch them, but I know they're trying to like blur those lines. Like, it's okay, that person's evil, but because they had X, Y, and Z reason. And I hope to like bring back that good versus evil, but with a little twist at the end,
Mhm.
and have that different themes that will lead, especially at the end, towards showing the light of God and how that love prevails.
Yeah, you brought up a really good point because that is true that a lot of these villain characters are coming across as the good guys more. Or yeah, and I'm definitely on board for knowing even the villains can still have redeeming, qualities to them. But yeah, like you said, making it where there almost really isn't a good or a bad. So yeah, I think you're right because yeah, spiritual battles are real, and the fight between good and
Yeah.
evil is real. So yeah, not just totally doing away with that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally great to have like redemptive characters who actually turn from bad to good.
Hmm.
What I find not so good is when they blur that, like they're bad still, but it's okay they're bad type of thing.
Right. Yes. Yep. That's true. I haven't watched the new, yeah, Wicked or recently, but I think that was the undertones, but that's a good perspective for sure. Um, okay, so then you've got the sequel worked out too. Do you think you're gonna try to release them kind of close together? Because I know some people like will just rapid release the multiple books. I know I have a trilogy that I've been working on the third book for a year and a half, and the other 2 books are already out. And I wish that I had been able to release them more together, so people that read the first couple books are like, when's the last one coming out? Do you think you'll have them together like that, or just kind of depends?
Well, I think with self-publishing, that's a better idea, but I'm not
Mhm.
very good at that because again, I don't know, like I get pregnant so often. Yeah. So, yeah, following God's will. That's what it's led
Yep.
to. But
Mhm.
but yeah, that I mean, that's why I started to work on the second one, and that's why I'm about three-fourths or more done with it because I figured that if I do self-publish and I don't go to traditional publishers, I'll at least have that rough draft done. And although
Mhm.
editing takes a long time,
Right.
um, at, that's one big step already.
And then you mentioned too, with because you says in the daytime you got your all your family obligations. So your writing is usually at night. Typically, is that when your kids go to bed?
Yes, I always start by reading a little bit and then writing or editing if that's where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I tried in the morning, but I swear my kids have a sixth sense when I wake up. I'm not a morning person though to begin with. My
Uh-huh.
husband convinced me to try and it just didn't work out. They always woke up.
Yeah, they're all like, "Where's mom at?" Yeah.
What, mom? Oh,
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's great though, because it sounds like, I'm assuming your family does support your writing, that dream that you have, even amidst your busy life with all your kids and all your pets as well.
yeah, my husband's been wonderful. He's not a reader, but he
Mhm.
still very much supports. He wish he was. He just was not brought up that way.
Mhm.
But my oldest son, he's read my book and he told me, this is the second favorite book I read. I'm like, oh, now you're my favorite child.
Oh.
But he's a big reader. He'll read like 400-page book in just like 3 days.
Wow.
I'm happy. I at least have one of them readers. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's just
I
not like him.
know. Yeah, it's so true because all myself and my siblings, we all grew up reading. But I'm really the only one that has stuck with it as an adult. My other siblings don't read anymore, and my husband is also not a reader. He actually likes listening to audiobooks or listening to somebody else read, but he doesn't really like to sit down and read himself. So it's interesting. Yeah, yep. So, yeah. Well, good. Well, I love to read what you said your advice is because I know those who are listening, most of people who listen to this podcast are authors. Some are other sorts of creatives doing other things, but you said your advice was persistence and prayer are everything. Don't fall into the trap of saying, I don't have time. If something truly matters to you, you'll make time no matter how tiny the sliver. Start small, show up consistently, even when it feels minuscule or insignificant. Before long, that daily habit will grow, the words will flow more easily, and the goal you once thought impossible will stretch into something beautiful. Above all, seek God's will in your writing and in your life. Lay every story and every doubt at His feet, and then keep going. I really liked that. I love how you focused on, persistence and prayer. Because I think, as a writer, especially, even those of us who have a lot of time to devote, it's still easy to fall into a rut or like lose motivation or get out of that writing habit. But it sounds like even in the busyness, you've been able to set aside that time that's brought you to where you are now. But is there anything else you want to add to that, to your advice for others who are listening?
Where I was, I just started it. I heard someone say, "Hey, if you need to start it, to make a goal. Start small." Like I mentioned in that what you just read, 250 words a day. That seems very small in a scheme of like if you're writing a 70,000 word book or a 100,000 word book. But as you write more, you'll start realizing, "Whoa, did I just write 500 words today or
Mm-hmm.
700 words?" And maybe say you'll go back down to like 250 words. But
Mm-hmm.
you just gotta keep going. Persistence is, and learn the craft though. It's very important to learn that craft that you're in your creative journey.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right. Learning the craft and also, as you were saying about the little word count getting bigger, I've noticed that too. Writing's a muscle. The more often you write and the more regularly, it becomes easier. When you just have writer's block or you don't know what to say, if you're doing it every day, I would just get to the point where I would write random things down. I would just write something, even if it didn't seem relevant to the story, and then being able to work it in somehow later on. But Yeah, I think that's great advice. Well, Tiffany, it's been great having you on the podcast, and I'm definitely gonna have to keep an eye out for your book. Sounds like you're hoping at least some point, maybe later this year, to have it published, Converging Darkness. And yes, those of you who are listening today, if you want to keep in touch with Tiffany, she has an account over on X, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Well, great. Well, I like to close out with a prayer that can be found on the Catholic Creatives website. It's become one of my favorites that I enjoy ending each episode with. So we'll start in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Creator of the universe, how infinite and astonishing are your worlds. O divine imagination, you created a crater when you imagined me into existence. Breathe breath into so much dust. Let me lament for forgetting daily to rise up out of the clay. Free me from the deceit of the mundane and from the lure of comfort, which dulls all my given edges. Most of all, light of my life, forgive my blindness, open my eyes, and salt me with newness and dreams. Fire my soul with your inventive flame, and let me be committed to the world by it, and find in it the deepest joy. Universal creativity, flow through me, faith to see things not yet seen, hope to overflow broken cisterns, and love to free me forever. Flow, O river, from the holy temple, through my mind to my hand, infuse my work with spirit to feed hungry souls. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.